Now, Kliff Kingsbury, as I call him, haircut, because he does have a beautiful head of hair and a great haircut. Texas Tech was part of all that Red Devil, whatever they call it, Red Raider, Air Raid, Texas Tech as he replaced Mike Leach. I mean, there's layers to that too, but yeah, Patrick Mahomes, right? Mm-hmm. I believe Baker Mayfield was part of the equation as a walk-on at one time there. Goes to Arizona. Now he got fired at Texas Tech and was going to take an offensive coordinator's job, Nolan. And I can't remember where it was, and I apologize. It might have been a collegiate team. And then he gets the head coaching opportunity with the Cardinals, Arizona, and has good success early with Kyler Murray. They made the playoffs one year, and then things went pear-shaped. He gets fired. Reinvents himself or reestablishes himself in Washington last year with the Commanders and Jaden Daniels, who had a brilliant rookie season. They made it to the NFC Championship game. Daniels battles injuries all year. Terry McLaurin had a holdout, then got hurt. Running back situation unstable, to say the least. So that offense never really got on solid footing. So he goes from one of the bright offensive minds in football to a guy that got fired within a calendar year. Now he's very much out there to be had. So I will ask you and our listeners here on this Total Request Thursday. It's Vinny and Haynie, Bob Haynie, Nolan McGraw, and old Alex Scamponi on the other side of the glass. Kliff Kingsbury, to me, is like Mike McDaniel. I mean, there might be some offensive brilliance in regards to him calling plays. But if you're Kliff Kingsbury, wouldn't you still have a preference of being a head coach and kind of running your team? And even though you're the head coach, you're still the de facto offensive coordinator, that sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure he'd like the head coaching gig. He wants another crack at that. But the league will tell you, what your market is, so to speak. Not talking about money value here. It's talking about how they view you. I know he got a head coaching interview with the Ravens and probably another couple teams out there. But look, if there's not any buzz, and there really hasn't been any buzz, then yeah, you're going to stick around as an OC. The reason for him leaving Washington is interesting to me. They called it a mutual parting. Philosophical differences between him and Dan Quinn, something over non-commitment to the run game, or the run game was a heavy factor there. So I don't know if that is really appealing to my ear, but the biggest part of this is, we heard from Dianna Russini, is the Ravens' player interest. If that's true, Lamar being very vocal, receivers being very vocal about wanting him as an OC, I got to listen to that. That doesn't mean that I'm just going to go, sign him right now, make him the OC. Forget the head coach. This is our OC. He's locked in. Or even once you get the head coach saying, we're going to strong arm you into hiring Kliff Kingsbury, there's still other options on the table. But if my players are that vocal about it and they're that adamant about it, I have to put a lot of stock into that. And that's me personally.
No doubt about it. And again, Kliff Kingsbury, I think he has proven that he can put points on the board. And if there was a disconnect between he and Dan Quinn last year with the Commanders running game, well, where's your running back? Mm-hmm. Krosky Merritt, a rookie. Rodriguez. Austin Eckler's on the downside of his career, and he got hurt early in the season. It's not like they had a ton of options to choose from, and I thought, given the circumstances, they generated as much as they can in the run game. To me, and just an outside observer, your quarterback injury, humongous to you, and then Terry McLaurin with the contract drama. Then they finally get that resolved, and he gets hurt and misses a ton of time. Deebo Samuel, they brought him in, and he thrived in San Francisco when he wasn't necessarily just a receiver. He could run out of the backfield. That all changed for him when they traded for McCaffrey. Mm-hmm. I mean, Deebo's not an old guy. He was drafted the same year, DK Metcalf, Marquise Brown, and A.J. Brown, and all those guys. But it's like he's never really been able to find a role. after San Francisco tried to make him a true receiver, and he's had injury problems and drama on top of it. So Kliff Kingsbury, I just thought, didn't really have a full deck. Not saying he was a goof, but you get the point. Mm-hmm. He didn't have his full complement to implement what he wanted to do offensively there. And
ultimately, the year prior, 24, it's not ancient history. We're talking about Jaden Daniels' rookie year, and his adaptation to the NFL was extremely smooth. And they were a top 5 scoring offense. They checked every box you could possibly want to see. So it's like the Monken thing, where maybe some people soured on Monken this year, and it's hard to argue against it, especially when we're talking about Derrick Henry's usage at times. But I can't ignore what he did in 23 and 24. And it's why I think the Giants are wise and Harbaugh's wise to bring him along with them to New York. There's still something there. And I hope in Kingsbury's case that, all right, are they going to be top 5 again every year under his, leadership? Probably not. But top 10 should be an expectation. Certainly not dropping all the way down into the 20s.
Right.
And I'm with you. I think that is injury-aided. Look no further than Daniels. I mean, you talk about, Deebo Samuel, McLaurin's drama. We didn't have running backs. If Daniels was there and fully healthy for a full year, that's way different. I'm not saying that they're a Super Bowl contender or they're even a top playoff team, but that offense is completely different to the point where I think that they're at least middle of the pack.
Yeah. Now, if they view running issues aside, that there was a regression with Daniels when he did play, all right, I'll listen to that. But can you really judge him fairly based on the fact that he was never healthy for the entirety of the season, and he had an elbow problem? It just, for Jaden Daniels, this would be a lost year. Mm-hmm. But it looks like Kliff Kingsbury was sacrificed because of it. And if it's a mutual parting of the ways, so be it. But getting back to the original point, if Kliff Kingsbury is the OC, I have no problem with it. But you also mentioned Anthony Weaver being the head coach. Mm-hmm. So now we get into a whole nother subject, like you said. Okay, we're cool with Anthony, but we want Kliff Kingsbury. Hey, Anthony Weaver gets to pick whoever the hell he wants to be his offensive coordinator, assuming he'll get the job. And he has interviewed twice, which usually bodes well for you being a serious consideration for the job.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, look, all I can say with confidence is that if they hired an offensive-minded head coach, that pretty much eliminates Kingsbury from being OC. There's no need to double up on the offensive minds there. But we know Weaver, at least for now, should be considered a finalist, gets the second interview. Jesse Minter gets the second interview, defensive mind. Now, I don't know if he has the same affinity for Kliff Kingsbury that Weaver supposedly does, but at least on paper, it would be a appropriate marriage of a defensive-minded head coach and a strong offensive-minded OC. I don't know. We'll wait and see. And again, I think that's where it comes back to the player interest that, let's say they hire Minter, which still seems to be the favorite at this point.
But we go back to what Steve Bisciotti said last week. He'll listen to player input, mention Lamar Jackson by name, but at the end of the day, the power comes from old Biscuit here.
Right. So that's what I'm getting at, that if you want to go with Minter and he comes in and maybe he's not fully sold on Kingsbury. He's open to the idea, but he maybe likes somebody a little different. But him sitting down and hearing from Lamar, well, no, I really want Kingsbury. We really want Kingsbury. We think that he can take this offense where it needs to be. Then again, if I'm Minter, I put some stock in that. I put some heavy stock in that. I mean, at the end of the day, this is, the most important player on the team. You're not bending the knee to him at all times, but I think this is an appropriate area where I very much want his input.
What do you think, people? 410-583-1057 is the number. If the players are calling for a certain coordinator to be the coordinator, does that undermine the head coach? And if they want, Anthony Weaver to be the head coach, or at least be someone that is seriously considered, which apparently he already is, you listen. But Steve Bisciotti, with the information he gathers from Ozzie Newsome and Eric DeCosta, he's going to make the ultimate decision here. And the fact that Anthony Weaver has Ravens ties, does that give him the inside track over, anyone else at this time who would interview for the job?
Not over everyone, because, again, I still think Minter's that Ravens connections in his own right,
No
just
doubt.
not as a player. So, yeah, it shouldn't be a surprise that those are two of your finalists, or guys that the organization is at least somewhat familiar with. I'm still hoping that, especially because Minter left the building yesterday with no deal, because there was some grumblings that might happen, that they were so tied to him that we're not going to let him leave the building. Let's just make it official now. But my hope is, because a guy like Klint Kubiak is still coaching with Seattle, that if they get bounced on Sunday, or even if they move on to the Super Bowl, that they still want to bring him back and consider him a finalist. We've kind of made light of their interest in the Broncos guys, Vance Joseph and Webb, but they're still alive, so that could be a part of it. Even Shieldhouse with the Rams.
Yeah.
So a good handful of the guys that they've at least interviewed once are still alive. I hope that means they're going to at least be a patient for another week.
Yeah, when you read your information out there, everybody, and you listen to us and all the other shows, I mean, have you gathered enough to pick a favorite? I'm going to defer to the experts, and we can say, after Zach Orr struggles as the DC, which you want a defensive-minded coach to come in here and tighten things up, and you still need personnel to get to the quarterback. I mean, there's talent there in the secondary. Will you want them to perform better? Are you also looking at a linebacking core with, Roquan Smith that might not be at his prime anymore? Is there still enough to extract from him to make him an all-pro level guy? You like Teddy Buchanan, et cetera, et cetera. Or do you want someone that comes in and gets the most out of Lamar Jackson? 29 years old. And you've already seen brilliance from this guy, as we've stated a million times. This guy is one of the best players in the National Football League, regardless of position. And what's all this nonsense, trading him to the Raiders and for the number one pick in the draft? And I know that's become, there was a survey done and predictions and such where he would go to Las Vegas for the number one pick, and I guess another group of players and picks involved. It is so nonsensical to even think about it in realistic terms. It is so stupid. We're more in the trade your 14th pick and one of the 11, or maybe go Ricky Williams, Mike Ditka, another 9 of your 11 picks, and go get Max Crosby.
Right.
The only transaction I want to see between the Ravens and the Raiders is getting Max Crosby to Baltimore. Trading Lamar Jackson,
I think
I would denounce them as my team.
Well, I think this
almost.
You don't have to worry. I'll say that. Well, you already
right.
knew that.
It's stupid.
But this is a classic case of, in the social media era, something starts rooted in truth, but it's an uninteresting, boring truth. So the truth here is that the Raiders would be interested in Lamar Jackson. Who wouldn't be? A team that stinks and needs a quarterback. So that's where it starts. They'll pick up the phone. They'll call. The Ravens won't answer. Or they answer, they laugh, and they hang up. On top of that, Lamar has a no-trade clause. So he has to waive that and essentially pick where he wants to go. Why would he want to go to the Raiders? Why? No reason. If you say that he's not as content in Baltimore and you want to buy into that narrative, that's fine. But on top of that, to say that I want to go to the Raiders, give me a break.
Yeah, and it's discontent in Baltimore based on reports, which have been refuted. Todd Monken, John Harbaugh, well, they're gone now. So what was the discontent be? He doesn't like Eric DeCosta. He doesn't like crab cakes. He hates the city. No, I'm not buying any of that.
No.
This guy is one of the most revered athletes that has ever performed. Yeah, I'm going to go, oh, man, I've seen them all. Well, I haven't seen them all, but you get the point. I've seen most of the Hall of Famers in every sport that we've had, and he's in the top 5 of most popular athletes and best athletes to ever play in this city. Yeah, so he is beloved in Baltimore.
Right. I mean, to even get to a point, we're probably giving this way too much credence,
yes.
But to even get to a point where if I'm the Ravens and considering that, I mean, we got to be full DEFCON 1 or 5, whichever one's the worst.
One's the worst.
One's I always have
One's we're going January 6th,
okay.
if you know what I'm
all
saying.
right. Well, we got to, we'd have to get to that point before the Ravens would even consider pulling the trigger on that. I mean, it would have to be a point where Lamar's publicly saying, I hate the Ravens, get me out of here. This stinks. I'll waive my no-trade clause for anybody. We can't win. we went 0-17 this year. I mean, it would be full on meltdown to get to that point.